child to experience that. So in order to be able to have a broader concept of what's normal. Your daughter saw normality in the doctor because that was a part of her lived became a part of her lived experience.
Yeah.
So really, that's really the key. And that's where a lot of microaggressions follow up from our limited experience of what is normal. I don't see black hair regularly in my lived experience, so I want to touch it because it's not normal. Something exotic.
Exactly. Our microaggressions come from our lack of lived experiences and what we perceive as normal. So if we increase the diversity of our experiences, then we also increase our perception of what is normal, right? What about, as a white person specifically, I'm thinking a white parent, if I have a genuine, authentic relationship with someone that looks differently than me, how can that shape my passion or advocacy for people that look differently than me? Would anybody agree that it is possible that a white person that has very racist views could possibly be a foster parent? It is possible, right? Unfortunately, but it is. Helping them to have more diverse and authentic relationships, is it possible that that could also then shape and help their views become different?
I think it does. I think it goes back to that dehumanizing kind of feature. When you're not a black person, a black man, I guess, in your bill, whoever, then you're a person, and it changes the dynamic. And I've seen this in my own family through grandparents, where things are said in this thing, and there's other spaces where a personal introduction is made and a relationship is built, and I'm no longer looked at under a lens, but as a person. And I think what a beautiful thing when we can be seen as people and not categorized.
Well, and like you said, it diversifies your experiences and what you think of as normal. And if I've never been outside of a very white community as a child or as an adult, and I see all this stuff that media puts about the pictures that we have, the young black men, and what happens with police encounters the young black men, might my perception of how that experience is happening be different? If I've never met a young black child or a young black man that I've had a relationship with and don't know that they could be different than the experiences that the media has forced me to, I mean, it just really those impressions on our minds. If I've never seen differently, what do I think? Those impressions become our beliefs, right? If we don't have an opportunity to diversify and see differently. So those authentic and genuine relationships can help us see differently from what the media wants us to see. And we can have a different perception of those incidents that are happening. Wait a minute, that might not be exactly how it happened, how the media wanted us to believe it. Because let's be honest, the media wants to sell news, right? That's their job. Yes, Tanya.
So if you live in rural Michigan, rural white community up in some very far off land, I mean, there are lots of those
Yes.
all over Michigan.
Yes.
And other states too, I imagine. But how would you encourage a white foster family or a white adoptive family to build that genuine, authentic relationship with someone that shares a different racial or cultural background?
If they're not your community, you have to leave sometimes. You have to go other places.
Yeah, but what if it's an hour and a half or 2 hour drive to leave your community? You're not going to leave that community and go to the city, quote unquote, and just bump into someone that looks different than you on the street and say, hey, let's be besties. Like, how does that happen?
You have to leave the city. Yeah.
I know my biggest interaction with other cultures has always been around food. And so we've like invited different people to our family to eat, you know, different types of food, and then we go to their family and eat food as well. And just the differences in cultures of food really is unique and interesting to me. And so that's how I've interacted as much as, you know, different cultures.
So sometimes when people ask me this question, Tanya, they don't always like my answer, but you have to.
No, and I
So
get it.
if you live in wherever, Michigan, that is very rural and does not have a lot of diversity, and you choose to foster and or adopt children that are not from that same socioeconomic and rural and racial makeup, specifically black children or brown children, you have to go to the city. You have to take them to a barber and come to the city. If you gotta come to Grand Rapids or somewhere else north, you have to take them to a barber. Go grocery shopping. Go to the city to go grocery shopping where people look different than you. That's something you have to do every week. Come here to go to the doctor. There's plenty of non-white doctors and nurses and dentists here. You have to bring them here because that was the choice you made. It's uncomfortable, it's inconvenient, okay. But what if your child never ever sees anybody that looks like them? What if your child never ever sees someone that looks like them as your friend? What internal message is that sending them? You never see your mom, your white mom, spending time with someone that looks like you. What message does that subconsciously tell them? You gotta be careful, right? That message is loud and strong. So is it more inconvenient for me to drive an hour to the barber, to the dentist, wherever it is? Or is it more inconvenient for my child to feel like there must be something wrong with me because my mom doesn't know or spend time with any people that look like me? What's more inconvenient?
If you're gonna drive to get your child counseling services or something else, why wouldn't you do the same to meet their cultural and racial needs? One of my biggest pet peeves is people who have done absolutely no work to integrate their lives, specifically wanting to adopt a child of color. Because you have to question their motivation.
And I think there's little things you can do too inside the home, like what color Barbies or dolls are you buying? And like if you're a foster care worker, like go into the home and be like, hey, like why aren't there any, you know, black Barbies? Like my daughter doesn't have any white dolls or Barbies, and I make that very like big on my family who are buying them things because like white is everywhere. It's like, you know, what you see on TV, like Black Panther was huge. So making sure that they're like have those superhero figurines and talking about like, hey, the Lion King, like most of their cast is black. Like I banned my house from seeing movies for 6 weeks because we were spending a lot of money there. But shoot, Lion King's coming out, we're gonna go see that because it's important for our, you know, our girls to see that. And just expanding to just the thought of you do need to get out and make yourself uncomfortable, and then hey, maybe you're going to the same barber, so you're building that relationship with that one person, and you have more of a specific relationship than going to like a bunch of random places. But just be intentional.
As the adult, who's supposed to be the uncomfortable one, the adult or the child?
The adult.
The adult, always. Yes.
In some ways, it comes back to what matters most, right? What matters most in this is should be the outcome for the child. And if I'm focused on that if I'm not focused on that as a parent, that's a huge issue. But if I am focused on that as a parent, I'll make the sacrifices, you know. It's no different from the sacrifices monocultural families make, you know, for kids, you know. I'll drive 5 hours so that my kid can go to play the travel team basketball, right? And pay all kinds of money to be holed up in a hotel for 2 days or 3 days for that tournament. you know, and only to drive 5 hours back, for that weekend, and my weekend is blown, right? Well, why do I do that? Because that's what matters most to me for my child. And so if what matters most is that experience of that child and the outcome, because the data and the research is clear, if that child never has those experiences, they're gonna have issues later on in life.
Because they
So
won't understand them as adults.
they won't understand them, and they won't be able to deal with what they encounter in society when they have those, when they have negative experiences. So if we want good outcomes for our kids, that should be something that's a priority for the parent. And I think that's the way to engage in that conversation. Is to say, you know, I'm just believing that you went into this for the best interest of this child. You want them to have a positive, not only childhood experience, but adult experience. And when you do this as a child, you're feeding, supporting a positive adult outcome by making those sacrifices.
This might be an easier question because you brought up the Disney movies. Do you know people really got mad that Ariel is a black girl in the new movie? We don't need to talk about why. I think we all understand why. But what do we say to our kids when they're like, why are people mad about that? So imagine one of your kids that you're working with and they say to you, because this is maybe a little bit easier question for them to ask, why are people mad that Ariel's black? What do we say? This is your opportunity to practice, guys. What do we say to them?
It depends on their age, but if they're old enough to understand, you can say, you know, white people are very used to seeing people who look like them in the media. So for them, it feels, you might not be able to use the word oppression, you might have to describe it differently, but it feels like oppression to them when something doesn't look like them, and they need to get used to seeing things that are popular in the media that are different from what they're used to.
I personally don't think it goes that deep. I think it's just they're used to the little white, red-headed girls, Ariel. They don't like change, so they changed it. They're not breaking up.
A lot of things to say. What about as foster parents and adoptive parents, or even workers? I would imagine none of you have kids on your social media, but some of the things, and this is one thing that foster parents sometimes don't realize what they're saying by what they're putting on social media, and then their kids are friends with them and they're seeing, and what that says to the kids. Does that make sense? So one of the coaches at the school that I go to, it's really disappointed me. I haven't even had the conversation yet, but I will. My daughter is 15 again, and she is friends with this coach on social media, and she saw him say something about Ariel not being white. And she was like, so he wouldn't be okay with me being Ariel? Like, she took it almost pretty personal. That, wait a minute, he coaches me and he's okay to coach me, but I'm not okay to be Ariel? And I asked her, I said, well, do you want to have this conversation with him by yourself, or are we going to both go have this conversation? She's like, oh, we're having this conversation, Mom. He's going to hear what I have to say, and he's going to read Michelle Obama's book. I hope he does. I really hope he does, and that'll open up his eyes, because he's coaching, our school is incredibly diverse. He's coaching many, many different races. There are 60-something different races in our school, many different races of kids. But we have to be really careful about what they see and what they perceive by what we're sharing on social media. When I say to me in that context, I mean as foster and adoptive parents, if our kids are seeing our social media like that, they can be, I mean, they take a lot from that. Your political stance, what are you sharing politically on social media? That can tell them a lot about themselves, or they perceive it.
Your bumper stickers too.
Your bumper stickers, yeah. That can definitely go into their perceptions.
And
Having
not
a-
everybody was upset about it. I mean, Black Girl Magic was in full effect on Black Twitter, on that, you know.
Yeah.
So there, you know, so you can point to that and just, you know, support it that way.
Have I studied the history of culture or races different than my own? I know that for foster and adoptive parents, there's some rules about making them read a book about race or making them attend a training about race if you don't offer it all, but what are some ways that we can help them study people different than themselves? Movies? Has anybody seen When They See Us on Netflix? That could wake some foster parents up, right? Has anybody seen Dear Martin? Has anybody seen that? Dear Martin? Well, y'all should, I think it's on demand right now. Should definitely watch that. That can wake some foster parents up. A lot of times when they watch a movie, it can help them relate to how their child might come across that situation. So movies are helpful for them in that situation. We have to be willing and able for ourselves, but also for our foster and adoptive parents that we're working with to help them look at situations differently and watch stuff differently so they can get those different perspectives that we talked about. Uh-oh. So how can we combat microaggressions? We've talked a lot. Oh, somebody got fired. Larry, your login is fired. Become aware of our own bias and fears. The self-awareness, those questions. If there's any of them that you answered and what you really thought and what you thought you should think were different, address that within yourself. Talk to a friend about it. Would everybody agree that we have to combat microaggressions? Start with that, right? Would everybody agree that we need to combat them? It isn't fair for kids to be hearing these things. Actively listen when someone raises a concern. So don't automatically defend yourself when a kid brings something up that they think is an issue, right? Don't be defensive. Be an ally, stand up, speak out. Oh boy, that might be really uncomfortable though, right? Stand up, speak out. If you hear someone use a microaggression or use a derogatory term, are you willing to stand up and say something to them? Even if it's a coworker? Who feels like they're ready for that? They're willing to stand up and speak out and say something to a coworker that said a microaggression.
I think you're more likely to do it though if you have friends or family that come from that area, I guess, that someone else is speaking negatively about. You're more likely to say, no, I know someone, or I know lots of people like that, and that's not okay. Versus if you don't know anyone, you're more likely just to kind of keep it to yourself.
Mm-hmm. The authentic relationships make it more personal to you. So if I have an authentic relationship with people that are different than me, and then someone says something about groups that are different than us or me, then I'm like, wait a minute, now you're talking about my friend. Educate others about microaggressions and how to stop them. So back to the question about our foster home, our adoptive home is colorblind,